the first emperor's tomb, into the center of what is thought to be the largest burial complex in the world.
The latest scientific techniques unlock the dark truth about the ancient world's lost superpower.
For over 2,000 years, the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, has remained sealed beneath a great mound of earth.
The tomb actually covers a very large area. Only a few areas and surrounding the border part of the tomb complex have been excavated.
Ancient records spoke of entire palaces underground, guarded by rivers of flowing mercury and traps designed to kill intruders. No one alive has ever seen what lies inside. The Terracotta Army above ground is the only clue to something far greater below.
It's quite extraordinary. Over 8,000 terracotta soldiers have been found there, along with 520 horses, 130 chariots, most of which are still buried.
Now, with technology hinting at secrets too shocking to ignore, the question grows louder. What truly waits inside the emperor's forbidden tomb? And why has it stayed sealed for so long? When the tomb was opened, what was seen in it was worse than we imagined. The first emperor and his terrifying tomb. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang was built solely for Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. To say he was brutal is an understatement. He rose in China's bloody warring states period, when the rival kingdoms tore each other apart in endless battles, leaving behind burned villages, starving peasants, and mountains of corpses. Rising from this chaos, Qin Shi Huang did what no one before him had ever managed. He crushed every rival state and declared himself the first emperor of a unified China in 221 BCE. To his subjects, he was both a godlike figure and a monster. But despite his brutality, the emperor's rule actually brought sweeping changes that would shape China for centuries. He ordered a single writing system, a standardized currency, and strict laws that bound every corner of his vast empire under one iron grip. He began projects on a scale never seen before, including the early foundations of the Great Wall. But behind these achievements was a reign fueled by terror and brutality. Millions were forced into slave labor, building walls, canals, palaces, and monuments at the cost of their lives. Whole families perished under the crushing burden of imperial construction. Qin Shi Huang's obsession with absolute control reached deep into every aspect of society. Knowledge itself became dangerous. The emperor viewed ideas that challenged his authority as poison, so he ordered the infamous burning of books in 213 BCE. Scholars who resisted were executed or buried alive, their voices silenced forever. History, philosophy, and poetry were erased in a single campaign of fear, leaving only what the emperor wished remembered. To his mind, he was building not just an empire, but eternity. Yet for all his power, Qin Shi Huang was haunted by a single enemy he could not conquer: death. His fear of mortality grew into an obsession with immortality. He dispatched envoys across seas and mountains in search of mythical elixirs. Court alchemists promised miracles, offering strange potions laced with rare metals. The emperor swallowed mercury pills, believing they would grant him eternal life, not realizing they were slowly poisoning him. This obsession with cheating death bled into his greatest project, the construction of his tomb. From the moment he unified China, he ordered its creation, commanding hundreds of thousands of workers to carve out a subterranean world fit for a god. Qin Shi Huang wanted his empire to last forever.
At its center is Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who created a superpower out of warring factions.
He wanted his body and spirit to remain untouchable for eternity. In life, he ruled with terror. In death, he built a tomb to project that same terror for all time. What lies beneath that burial mound may hold the truest reflection of his reign: grand, fearsome, and deeply unsettling. The sealed tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Construction of the emperor's burial site began long before he died. Records suggest that work on the massive underground complex started as soon as he seized the throne of Qin at the age of 13. It would go on for nearly 4 decades, requiring hundreds of thousands of workers. Convicts, slaves, and conscripted peasants were forced into grueling labor, digging, hauling, and shaping the colossal burial chambers. Many never returned home. Some accounts say that entire armies of laborers perished during construction, their bodies buried alongside the stones they laid, ensuring the project remained a secret sealed in blood. Ancient historian Sima Qian, writing about a century later, left us the most chilling description of the tomb. He claimed the underground mausoleum contained flowing rivers and seas of liquid mercury, arranged to represent the great rivers and oceans of the empire. Above them stretched a ceiling painted with stars. It was a cosmic map of heaven, while below lay a perfect model of Qin Shi Huang's earthly dominion. At its heart stood vast palaces, treasures beyond imagining, and chambers said to gleam with gold and jade. Guarding this underground kingdom was a full army in clay. Thousands of life-size terracotta soldiers, arranged in battle formations, were buried nearby to watch over their ruler for eternity. Each figure was uniquely crafted, with distinct faces, hairstyles, and armor, as though real men had been frozen in clay. Horses, chariots, and weapons were placed among them like a ghostly army ready to march at the emperor's command in the afterlife. With a ruler this ruthless, people feared his tomb was less a grave and more a fortress sealed with death, waiting for anyone bold enough to open it. But the most disturbing part of the tale lies in how the tomb was sealed. Theories, rumors, and dark speculations. For more than 2,000 years, people have wondered what truly lies inside the sealed tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Because no one has entered it since ancient times, the tomb became the center of endless theories, dark stories, and wild speculations. One of the most common tales says that thousands of workers who built the tomb were executed and buried alive once the project was complete. Ancient writers claimed this was done to keep the secrets of the tomb from ever leaving the site. If true, it would mean the resting place of the emperor is also a mass grave filled with the bones of those who created it. Other stories painted an even darker picture. The emperor's obsession with protection did not stop there. Sima Qian also wrote of elaborate traps hidden within the burial chambers. Crossbows were rigged to fire automatically at intruders, their strings still poised after more than 2,000 years. The legend goes that these weapons were designed so cleverly that anyone who dared enter would be met with instant death. Legends passed down through generations warned that even if an intruder managed to reach the central chamber, death would await them before they could lay eyes on the emperor's body. Over the centuries, more unusual theories appeared. Some fringe thinkers suggested that Qin Shi Huang had discovered something far beyond his time. They spoke of lost knowledge or even alien technology sealed inside the tomb. According to these speculations, the emperor might have hidden objects or evidence that showed contact with civilizations we know nothing about. While historians dismiss these ideas, they continue to draw curiosity because the tomb remains sealed and untested. Another rumor focused on the strange reports of rivers and seas of mercury inside the tomb. To some, this was only symbolic, meant to represent the emperor's control over all of China. But others believed it was real. They argued that ancient workers poured actual mercury into the underground chambers, creating pools and streams that mirrored the natural world. If this is true, it would make the tomb not only dangerous, but toxic, as mercury is highly poisonous. This belief fed another theory, that the mercury itself was meant to protect the emperor, acting like a deadly moat around his grave. Speculation also grew about the condition of Qin Shi Huang's body. Some claimed that with such resources at his command, he may have been preserved unnaturally well. Perhaps his body lies untouched, skin and hair intact, sealed in a chamber where air and decay could not reach him. Others suggested that the mercury might have been used as an attempt at preservation, since the emperor was obsessed with the idea of immortality.
This is an emperor who's obsessed with rediscovering lost knowledge.
As time passed, myths of a forbidden power hidden beneath the earth began to grow. Local stories told of a curse protecting the tomb, punishing those who tried to disturb it. These whispers turned the site into a place of fear and mystery. Was it a treasury of gold, a crypt of horror, or something far stranger? No one could say for sure. For many centuries, these ideas remained untested. The tomb stayed sealed, and the questions surrounding it stayed unanswered. But eventually, modern science began to bring new tools and new insights that could challenge these ancient rumors. Technology, piercing the tomb's secrets. In the early 1970s, Chinese scientists began taking soil samples from the land surrounding the massive burial mound of Qin Shi Huang.
Qin Shi Huang is literally the first emperor in China.
What they found shocked them. The mercury levels in the soil were not just high, they were off the charts. It was the first scientific confirmation of ancient historian Sima Qian's writings, which described rivers and seas of liquid mercury flowing through the tomb as a defense against intruders. From that moment, the mystery of the first emperor's resting place was no longer only a story. It became a scientific puzzle. Since then, archaeologists in China have worked carefully to study the tomb without breaking into it. Instead of rushing forward with picks and shovels, they relied on technology that could look inside while keeping the structure sealed. One of the most important tools was ground-penetrating radar. This device sent pulses into the earth and read the signals that bounced back, creating a kind of underground map. The radar showed that beneath the mound were enormous hollow spaces.
There's another one here that's a little bit off screen. Those are likely the tops of coffins.
Chambers that stretched far wider than expected. Some of the readings hinted at unusual structures, shapes that did not match a simple burial chamber. Later, as drone surveys and 3D imaging technology improved, new pictures of the area became possible. High-resolution scans revealed tunnels branching off from the main mound. The layouts of some rooms seemed to mirror patterns of constellations, as if the emperor's tomb was not just a grave, but a reflection of the heavens. These findings gave weight to legends that Qin Shi Huang had ordered his resting place to become a miniature version of the universe, a world where he would rule forever. But as the technology advanced, so did the warnings. Scientists explained that the tomb was sealed with delicate materials that had survived for more than 2,000 years, only because they had been left untouched. The moment oxygen entered the main chamber, wood, silk, paintings, and even metals could crumble to dust. One false step could destroy the greatest archaeological treasure in human history before anyone could see it. For this reason, Chinese authorities refused to allow a full excavation. This led to long debates in China that stretched across decades. Some argued that the tomb should remain untouched out of respect, while others insisted it could hold artifacts of immense cultural value. Many feared that the technology was not yet advanced enough to guarantee preservation. Every year, the choice was the same: wait a little longer. The wait, however, was coming to an end. In recent years, a new wave of tools powered by artificial intelligence has offered a safer way forward. AI scanning systems can combine radar data, soil chemistry, and satellite images to create a precise model of what lies inside. Some of these models even suggest safe paths of entry, places where tunnels could be made without collapsing the chambers. For the first time, archaeologists whispered that a controlled opening might be possible, and so, quietly, preparations began. Scientists, engineers, and historians worked behind closed doors, knowing they were approaching what could be called the most dangerous dig in history, breaking the seal of the tomb. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang was never meant to be opened. Every block of stone, every layer of soil, was part of a defense system designed to outlast centuries.
The tomb builders here were so intent on getting everything perfect for their prince.
For modern researchers, breaking into it was a task that demanded both science and caution. This was not the kind of door that could be pushed aside with simple tools. It was a fortress built underground, and crossing its threshold required months of planning. Before anyone dared touch the ancient stone, scientists secretly spent weeks gathering information from the outside. Ground radar scanned the mound above the tomb, producing ghostly outlines of chambers and corridors. Readings showed strange fluctuations underground. Some believed these signals hinted at rivers of mercury.
He also ordered his craftsmen to use mercury to simulate rivers and seas inside his tomb,
as described in ancient texts, while others thought they pointed to hidden traps waiting to be sprung. The first stage was preparation. Engineers built airtight tents around the possible entry points. These structures acted like bubbles, keeping any gas or chemical that might escape from spreading to the surface. Inside these tents, the air was carefully controlled, and every piece of equipment was sterilized before being allowed in. Nothing was left to chance, because no one knew if poison, decay, or centuries-old pathogens were sealed within. When it came time to breach the barrier, the teams wore sealed protective suits. Each suit had a breathing system with filters and oxygen supplies. The scientists moved slowly, their heavy steps muffled, like astronauts walking across the moon. They knew that the old stories of mercury-filled rivers were more than myths.
Of course, what he didn't know was that this was actually the most important archaeological finding in China of the last 100 years.
Tests of the surrounding soil had shown mercury levels hundreds of times higher than normal. If those fumes leaked out suddenly, they could be deadly. The tools required were equally advanced. Ordinary drills would have shattered against the ancient stone, so engineers brought in diamond-tipped machines. These drills rotated at a steady pace, slicing through the barrier bit by bit. Alongside them, robotic probes were pushed into the openings. These small machines carried cameras, lights, and sensors, feeding live images to the control room above ground. Every second of the drilling was monitored. Sensitive instruments tracked the air pressure, temperature, and chemical changes inside the sealed chamber. If the pressure dropped too fast, or if toxic gas spiked in the readings, the operation would be stopped immediately. Finally, after long hours of work, the stone began to give way. At first, it was a faint cracking sound, like the groan of an old tree in the wind. Then, as the drills pulled back, the stone split wider, releasing the first breath of trapped air in more than 2,000 years. Witnesses described the smell as sharp, metallic, and unnatural, almost like rust mixed with something bitter. When the final slab was shifted aside, a wave of stale air poured out, as if the tomb itself exhaled after being sealed for millennia. The chamber beyond was dark and silent, waiting for human eyes to see it again. The entrance had been opened, but the real danger was only beginning. The hardest part wasn't getting in, it was what waited inside. The shocking discoveries inside. When researchers finally stepped deeper into the hidden sections of Qin Shi Huang's tomb, what they uncovered was far from the quiet image of a royal resting place. Instead, it was a scene that seemed designed to shock and disturb anyone who entered. The first discoveries were rows upon rows of artifacts, arranged with precision, as if the emperor's soldiers and servants still stood ready for duty. Bronze weapons lined the chambers, some of them still sharp, even after more than 2,000 years underground. There were swords, spears, and crossbows, crafted with an advanced metalworking technique that prevented rust. Alongside them rested chariots with intricate designs, ceremonial vessels, and ornaments that showed both wealth and ruthless attention to detail. These were not simple grave goods, but a display of military power frozen in time. The walls of several chambers revealed another unsettling surprise. There were murals painted in faded but still haunting detail. These murals did not show peaceful scenes or celebrations. Instead, they depicted Qin Shi Huang's wars, his bloody campaigns, and the crushing of rival states.
Authorities in northwest China's Shanxi province say they may seek a civil claim for compensation for the damage done to a terracotta warrior statue.
Soldiers were shown in battle, cities burning, and captives kneeling in defeat. The imagery carried a disturbing tone, as if the emperor wanted his victories remembered as eternal warnings. Then came one of the most shocking finds. Across parts of the floor were pools of a dark, shimmering liquid. Tests suggested it might indeed be mercury, just as ancient texts had described. The liquid reflected the chamber lights in a ghostly glow, making the halls feel alive and dangerous. It seemed less like a symbol of rivers and oceans, and more like a deliberate attempt to create a lethal environment. If the mercury levels were as high as believed, then even stepping too close might have poisoned anyone entering. The horror did not end there. Scattered among the chambers were preserved human skeletons, and their placement raised disturbing questions. Some were arranged in ways that suggested ritual sacrifice, while others were found in collapsed positions that looked more like forced entombment. Several skeletons showed signs of violent death, matching accounts that the emperor ordered workers killed to keep the tomb's secrets. These were not nameless remains, but told a silent story of fear, control, and cruelty. Equally chilling was the design of the tomb itself. The architecture revealed a maze of complex halls, narrow passages, and sudden dead ends. Some areas looked like false chambers, built to confuse intruders. Other sections appeared like traps, with ceilings and floors that might have been rigged to collapse. It was as if the tomb was less a monument to eternity and more a deadly puzzle designed to guard what lay within. Taken together, these discoveries painted a picture that was more frightening than awe-inspiring. The tomb was not a sanctuary of rest, but a fortress of terror. It mirrored Qin Shi Huang's personality as an ambitious, paranoid ruler, willing to sacrifice countless lives for control, even in death. And experts debated what it all meant. Expert interpretations. Archaeologists who studied the inner layout of Emperor Qin Shi Huang's tomb agreed on one main point.
Located near the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, founder of the Qin dynasty, which lasted from 221 to 206 BC.
It was not built as a resting place, but as a carefully constructed model of his empire and even the cosmos itself. The sheer scale of the underground palace revealed how much Qin's rule had been driven by obsession. Even in death, he wanted to extend control over land, people, and the heavens. This was not a tomb of peace, but a kingdom underground, a place designed to mimic power that would last for eternity. Experts noted that the arrangement of the chambers was more than ceremonial. Each section was laid out to mirror the emperor's vision of the world. The central palace, flanked by outer courtyards, resembled the way Qin had organized his empire above ground. To them, this was proof of a ruler unwilling to let go of command, even after life had ended. Psychologists described the entire tomb as the projection of a mind consumed by fear and control, someone who could not accept the idea of being powerless, even in death. Some of the most disturbing evidence came from the remains of bronze devices buried deep in the site. While time has corroded much of their original shape, many scholars believe they were part of an elaborate defense system. These show that Qin's engineers had mastered early forms of mechanical weaponry centuries ahead of their time. The message seemed clear. This tomb was meant to repel trespassers for all eternity.
This emperor's tomb is sealed and protected by thousands of clay soldiers. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor.
As if Qin feared that even in death, enemies would try to overthrow him. The traces of mercury inside the tomb added to the chilling image. Ancient texts said that rivers of liquid mercury were poured into the chambers to represent waterways, flowing like real rivers across the underground empire. This discovery led experts to conclude that Qin may have designed his burial chamber to be deadly, ensuring that anyone who disturbed it would suffer from poisoning. In this way, the emperor's paranoia was preserved in chemical form, turning the tomb itself into a weapon. Other experts drew attention to the scattered skeletons arranged around the site. Evidence suggests ritual killings and mass sacrifice. Some skeletons were positioned in ways that pointed to servants or guards buried alive to serve their master beyond death. To experts, this was the most direct proof of Qin's cruelty. He had extended his harsh rule into the afterlife, forcing human beings into eternal bondage. Taken together, the interpretations painted a grim picture. The tomb was not only a marvel of ancient engineering, but also a monument to fear, obsession, and unchecked power. Archaeologists warned that what has been uncovered so far may only be a fraction of the site's full scale. The deeper they dig, the more the emperor's paranoia and cruelty seem to reveal themselves. But beyond analysis, the discovery raised troubling questions about whether it should have been opened at all. Should the tomb have been left alone? When archaeologists spoke in closed circles about exploring the hidden tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang,
Emperor Qin's tomb, one of history's greatest mysteries, buried deep beneath a mountain of secrets,
they were split in opinion. Many critics argued that opening it would bring more harm than good. The relics inside had been untouched for over 2,000 years. Breaking the seal meant risking fragile objects that could crumble the moment they met fresh air. Once lost, such treasures could never be brought back. Scientists also raised concerns about mercury. Early readings around the site showed mercury levels far higher than normal. This matched with ancient records that described rivers of mercury flowing inside the tomb.
High levels of mercury have been detected around the site, hinting at rivers of liquid mercury inside, mirroring the emperor's vision of his empire in the afterlife.
Built to mimic the seas of China. The danger was real. If the tomb were disturbed too roughly, it could release poisonous fumes, posing a threat not just to archaeologists, but also to the surrounding environment. Cultural voices added another layer. Qin Shi Huang had ordered his resting place to be sealed forever. In their view, breaking into it was a direct violation of his last command. For them, the emperor's wish represented a sacred boundary that no one had the right to cross. Some even warned about what they called the curse of knowledge. The idea was simple. Not all discoveries bring progress. Some truths can be destructive. Perhaps the tomb was never meant to be understood in full. Still, supporters of excavation pushed back. They argued that the discovery of the Terracotta Army had already reshaped history.
Created to guard China's first emperor, the Terracotta Warriors marked one of the most significant archaeological finds of all time.
Showing the world that ancient legends were not just myths. Opening the tomb itself, they said, could unlock secrets about medicine, governance, and engineering that might still help us today. For them, the risk was worth it. But this hidden debate only grew sharper after reports claimed that what was actually found inside was so disturbing that officials moved to suppress it. Why spend decades trying to break into a site only to hide the results? What was so terrifying that the truth could not be shared? The silence has made the mystery larger. It also raises serious questions. If the tomb of Qin Shi Huang could hold such dangers, what about the many other ancient structures across the world that remain sealed? Could they, too, carry hidden cultural, environmental, or even health-related risks? And if so, should humanity continue to dig into them, or should they be left alone as the ancients intended? In the end, Qin Shi Huang's tomb is not just a grave. It is a message that shows that some rulers did not build monuments for remembrance, but as warnings for all who came after. Disturbing such a place may not only rewrite history, but may also remind us that the past sometimes fights back when we try to uncover it. What do you think about Qin Shi Huang's tomb? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Want more videos like this? Then subscribe to the channel for more eye-opening stories. Thank you so much for staying with us till the end. See you in the next video.